Let
Just came up.
Recording in progress.
We're going to give a few minutes for everyone to get on.
And Sam, based on what you said, I think you should make the announcement on 1818, or I guess Janice. At the
Janice, she's the one who told me.
Yeah.
And we should have everybody on, well, everyone who's not speaking should mute themselves.
And you'll notice that there is a notice about being recorded, which you must click on the button in order to continue. So you're consenting to being recorded. I think we have everyone. You agree, Sam?
Yeah, I don't see that button.
It's recording.
Okay, yeah, it is recorded.
Yes. All right, I want to welcome everyone. This is a large group we have tonight to the Center City Residents Association meeting. I wanted to start out by letting the folks here that are for 1818 Spruce Street. That project is going to be heard next month, not this month.
1818 South Rittenhouse Square.
I'm sorry, 1818 Rittenhouse Square. That one is number 3 on our agenda, but we will not be hearing that this evening. Okay, we'll go on. So welcome to the meeting. As you know, the Center City Residents Association has its boundaries from South Street to JFK, Broad Street to the Schuylkill River. Tonight's meeting will go as follows. First, applicants will be allowed to present. We ask that the applicants address the specific refusals or referrals. I will be reading the refusal. We ask for no interruption as the applicants give their full presentation. After the presentation, the zoning committee will have a chance to ask questions. After the zoning committee's questions are completed, we will open the meeting to the community for comment. When you are addressed, we ask that you stand, state your name and address, stand, right? You wave at us on Zoom, okay? And keep your questions succinct and to the variance being discussed. We also ask that people do not repeat each other's questions. If you agree with someone's position, you are welcome to let us know by simply stating that you agree. If there is a spokesperson here for the neighbors, we ask that this person stand and speak for the group. After we hear from all applicants, we listen to the community's comments, and then our committee meets in closed session. We will vote in one of 3 ways: to oppose, to not oppose, or to not oppose with provisos. Just so you know, CCRA never votes in favor of any application. Our decision will be mailed to the councilperson, the ZBA, and the applicant. No matter how we decide, if you are concerned with a particular project, we strongly recommend that you attend the ZBA hearing. This is the best way to make your concerns known. Okay, with that, we can start the first case. This one is at 2000 Spruce Street. The refusal is for a use only in the commercial district. The proposed visitor accommodation use is prohibited. The representative for the applicant, I believe, is Adam Laver. Adam, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you, Janice. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Laver. I'm a zoning attorney at Blank Rome, and I'm here this evening with Jason Nussbaum, who is the owner of 2000 Spruce Street, and also Tom Hallinan, also of Jason's organization, which is City Living Philly. You may know as neighbors, Jason, who lives in the neighborhood with his wife and young family. Jason takes great pride in some of his recent developments, including the Goddard School on Pine Street, and also the Amazon at 23rd and South. You may also know him from Rittenhouse Market and some of his other properties in the neighborhood. I'd like to go right to screen share, and I'll walk you through this proposal. Bear with me for just a moment. Are you able to see the notice of refusal that I have up on the screen? Very good. As I mentioned, the property is 2000 Spruce Street, which is the southwest corner of 20th and Spruce. And you'll note that the property is located in the CMX1 zoning district. That's a commercial zoning district, common for corner properties. I highlighted a few things that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. At the bottom of the page, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, you'll see that dating back to 1941, the property was approved for 7 families and some other uses. The 7-family use, 7 apartments, is what is currently in the property. If we move up towards the top of the page, you'll see that there's 1 use refusal for the proposed visitor accommodations, which Janice mentioned at the start of this discussion. Many of you, I'm sure, have noticed, as I have, the work that Jason has put into the exterior of the property to really upgrade this very important property within our neighborhood. There are no changes proposed to the outside of the property beyond what you see today. I'm going to move along here with some plans. Here we see 20th Street and Spruce Street. It's a very large property. It runs back to Cypress Street. The improvement size that is there is about 6,000 square feet. Again, no changes are proposed to the exterior beyond the wonderful upgrades that I'm sure you've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
What Jason is proposing is a unique concept for our neighborhood. And I say ours because I'm a Center City resident and live very close by to the property as well. It would be to retain the existing 7 residences within the 4th-story structure for long-term stay uses. So if relatives are visiting from out of town, or if someone is looking for a neighborhood experience in coming to Philadelphia, they would have the opportunity for a unique type of stay in a very small scale visitor accommodations venue. Jason is partnering with Archway brand, which currently operates a similar establishment in Fishtown. And his partner is Roland Cassis, who some of you may know as the man behind Soraya and Badia. There is no restaurant component to this. These are purely the 7 units that I mentioned for this type of long-term stay, but it's exciting to have this type of creative energy come to this corner. So how would it work? Here is the first floor plan, which is the second from left. Those of you who are familiar with the property know that the entrance to this property is off of 20th Street. One would enter into the property and be greeted by a virtual concierge and be able to go directly into his or her unit. And you'll see here on the floor plans, again, the existing layout is first front 2 bedroom, first rear 3 bedroom, second front 1 bedroom, second middle 1 bedroom, second rear 1 bedroom, third front 3 bedroom, third rear 2 bedrooms. There is a true need for this type of a use in the neighborhood. Jason established City Living Philly in about 1990. His offices are at 1824 Spruce Street. just down the street. Although there would not be staff within the property in fixed positions, there would be touch points every day with housekeeping, with maintenance, with trash removal. For example, speaking of trash removal, to anticipate questions that may come up, Jason has worked with commercial trash pickup providers, Accurate Trash Removal in particular. And you can see here in the basement that there's internal trash storage, which would be taken out through 20th Street and picked up directly by commercial trash pickup several times per week. This is a creative concept, very similar to other creative concepts that Jason has pursued, like Amazon, like changing a garage into the Goddard School. It's taking a beautiful historic property in the neighborhood and through adaptive reuse, filling a need that's been identified. This is not Airbnb, and it's also not the Warwick Hotel or the Rittenhouse Hotel. This is for someone who wants the neighborhood feel in a luxury setting. This is what Jason and his partners would be trying to achieve. For example, strict noise policies, etc. I'll continue to move through the plans. If the technology will cooperate, just bear with me for a moment. I think it's coming up. We're trying to bring up a rendering for you. Here we go. I think it's such a detailed rendering that the computer is taking a moment to pull up all the detail here. But I'd like everyone to see, for those who haven't had the chance to walk by, the remarkable job that has already gone into the exterior of the property. Here we go, excellent. Okay, on the left-hand side of the page is the south elevation. That is at the rear of the property. The east elevation is really the front, the main entrance up the steps into the beautiful mansion is what it is, and then into the individual apartments for the stay. The north elevation along Spruce Street does not have access to it. Historically, it has not had access, which distinguishes it from the residential properties to the west. Jason and Tom put together some interesting historical photographs of the property, which are coming up onto the screen. Going back to 1906, you can see that similar look to the property, main entrance on 20th.
Pardon me, Adam. Adam, is it possible to expand the viewable part on your screen?
Yes, I'm going to do that right now. Sorry about that. Okay, we are at 100%. Virtual is never ideal. Thanks for bearing with me. Can you see this a little bit better now? Or should I zoom in a little bit more? Good, okay. So these are the historical photographs. You can see the main entrance going back to 1906 here on 20th Street, going through the years 1986, 2011. And the bottom far right is just prior to the work that Jason did. Now here, as I'm scrolling down, you're seeing the recent work. And it's really quite extraordinary. The Spruce Street facade has been restored. 20th Street brick pointing, beautiful historic restoration. Here's another photograph. This is very much what you see if you walk by today or tomorrow. Here is a photograph of Cypress Street at the rear. I recognize there may be people on the phone who are on Cypress Street or Delancey, and that's their view. And just some interior photographs to show the type of treatment and the type of luxury, high-end finishes that Jason has at this site. The hardwood flooring, the original staircases. And here I had mentioned to you, and feel free to take a look online about the Archway Hotel Residence, which is behind this project. Again, maintaining the 7 existing apartment units. I don't want to say that it's exactly like a Corman Suites or a the property just next to the Dorchester on the square. It is unique in what it is. Is it like 1715 Rittenhouse? I just bring these up as examples for the type of low impact amenity use for all of us. And with that, I've shared some letters of support already with the zoning committee. I don't know that it's necessary to bring those up on the screen right now, although I have them here. I do have the certificate of mailing, etc., which the chairs already have in their possession. So I think in the interest of time, I can take a pause right now. As I mentioned, Jason is here to answer questions and engage in discussion. Jason has reached out to many of you personally, and to those that he has not had the opportunity to speak with, I know that as a neighbor who lives here, and also as a property owner, a businessman, he would be pleased to speak with any of you offline. I'll stop the sharing and look forward to engaging with you now.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. All right, we'll start with the committee questions. Could I start with Jacob Cooper, please?
No questions.
Evan Litton.
Yeah, what's the price point for the stays for each night?
Sure. Jason, I know that we discussed that a little bit with Tom, but why don't I let you speak to that directly if you don't mind.
It will vary. It's you can see some example prices on the Archway's current website, and you know it will vary based on availability. I'd say probably somewhere in the range of on the low side $180 a night, and on the high side $250 a night. It will definitely be you know, perhaps some as high as $300 a night, but we're going to make sure that we don't take stays that are less than 3 nights. We're going for the person that wants a Philadelphia experience without having to stay in a hotel. We've noticed there's always a lot of movies being filmed around the neighborhood. We get phone calls from, you know, sometimes from people that they don't want to live in a hotel for the week or 2 weeks or a month that they're shooting, but they'd like to have a low-key experience, yet have all the amenities of living in a luxury apartment. We get calls for those things all the time.
Okay. Are there services that will be offered? I mean, I guess how is it different than an Airbnb? It would be my question.
It's a higher end experience.
Not that it's a problem.
No, that's okay, and it's a fair question. It's a higher end experience. It's a different technology than many have seen. With this virtual concierge, when you come in, you can have direct contact with a real person to answer questions, to ask for extra towels, to ask a question about dining reservations in the neighborhood, to make an arrangement to pull up in the back where there is a parking space as part of the property and know that you have a 20-minute period to unload your packages. If you have a unexpected leak or a problem with the HVAC, for example, you put in an immediate request, and Jason, City Living Philly, is down the block on the 1800 block of Spruce Street and has someone there right away. There are housekeeping staff who will be coming in on a regular basis, the commercial trash pickup. So with that type of surround support, we are making the representation to you, which is a selling point also for those who choose to utilize the services, that on a daily basis, there will be someone professionally, at least in the property every day. But it's going to be very discreet. You don't have a live concierge. It's the size of it doesn't call for it. And it also is more discreet and the type of thing that many people would like, not to have those types of direct interactions, but it's available when you want it, if you want it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Knowing that a few additional people have joined this meeting, I just want to re-announce that the case for 1818 Rittenhouse Square will be heard next month, if you're waiting for that case. On with the questions now. We shall go to Bob Lane.
Hi, am I unmuted? Yeah.
Laura, Bob.
Hi. First of all, I want to really commend the developer for the work that you've done on the exterior. Having lived for 30 years at 22nd block of Spruce, and now for the last 5 years at around 20th and Pine, I walk by that corner every day of my life forever. And the work you've done there is really lovely. The question I have is, what is your hardship as to why this property can't be used consistent with the zoning, like all the other properties around? And if you wanted another unit or whatever, we could discuss that. But why do you think a hotel or an Airbnb is appropriate right in the heart of one of the best residential districts in Philadelphia? What's the hardship?
Fair question, Bob. You have a beautiful property here, again, about 6,000 square feet, and a real demand for this type of use in the neighborhood. We will get into the legalities before the zoning board. You and I know each other well, and there may be differences of opinion regarding legal grounds per se. But as you can see with the investment that Jason made in this particular property, he really wants to respond to needs in the community, and so that's why we're pursuing it at this time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Bob. Can we have Ben W., please?
Hey, thanks, guys. Great proposal. Again, I commend the work. I agree on the exterior, a vast improvement. Just quick question, Adam and Jason, would you be willing to agree to a proviso for the things that you stated, meaning a 3-night minimum stay, and that the parking spot in the back you would reserve for the loading, unloading, just because 3 nights, you're still talking about 120 potential changeovers versus 1.
Absolutely, Ben. Every representation that we're making is something that Jason wishes to stand behind.
Did it, Ben? Thank you. Ben Zuckerman.
Yeah, I've got 2 questions.
Hi, Ben.
Is there any formal restriction that you would accept to limit this to rentals of not less than 3 nights? And also, is there any plan or restriction as to how many people can share a unit during a particular rental? I'm thinking of, the 6 people, the Airbnb party groups.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd like to confirm what we mentioned briefly a moment ago, that yes, we are willing to the conditions that the two Bens have now laid out. And Jason absolutely intends to have a policy in place that would prohibit noise and other such things. And in whatever way, whatever language that your counsel, Wade Albert, would like to work out with us, I believe that we have a mutual agreement on it. And I'd like to also note, which I alluded to earlier, Jason has spoken with many of the near neighbors. The immediate next door neighbor, Karen at 2002, and many others beyond that have understood this concept and are comfortable with it, as we've shared with the co-chairs of the committee. And I think that speaks for a lot here. With the investment that Jason has made in this property, someone said to me that they were shocked to see that he went ahead and spent so much money at this early stage. He's doing that because he believes in the property, he believes in the neighborhood, and he does not want to see his investment hurt in any way. And parties do not work with this location.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Saul?
Thanks. It looks like a lovely property. I'm just curious as to if you have any agreements with parking garages or other area facilities where people who will be driving in will be able to park, as opposed to driving around the neighborhood to take up other spaces.
There, to my understanding, there's nothing in place at the moment. However, Jason is looking into some options for exactly what you just mentioned and intends to pursue them. And we would be glad to follow up with CCRA regarding that.
Thank you. That's
Sam?
No comment, no questions.
Robin?
No questions.
Veronica?
Thank you for your presentation. I had a question on the noise restrictions that you mentioned. I have the impression that you may have already addressed that. If there was anything you wanted to add, I'd be curious to hear. Thank you.
Sure. I'd like to underscore that those who are renting these units from Jason will have to abide by regulations that will be shared ahead of time. So I believe that it would be breaking a contract not to abide by those regulations, and Jason would have the right to act upon that if there is a problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Veronica. Have I missed anyone on the committee? Seeing that I have not, are there any members of the public that would wish to ask a question? I see none. Well, thank you both for, I didn't have any questions, but I did want to say what a beautiful job the restoration is so far. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. We look forward to continuing to work with CCRA, and anyone who would like to speak offline, please, you're welcome to reach out to me, laver@blankrome.com, or to Jason, and the Janice and Sam certainly have our contact information if you didn't catch it. Thank you all. I'll be staying with you for another presentation later in the evening, and Jason and Tom will be signing off.
Thank you.
Okay, our next case, 327 South Smedley Street. The refusal is for expanding a non-conforming use, and then for open area. The minimum required open area for RSA 5 zoning is 200 square feet or 25%. Whereas the proposed addition reduces the non-conforming open area from 159 square feet to 149 square feet, or 18.6%. I believe that Peter Elsbeck is here to present.
That's right. Thank you, Janice. And the owners, Brendan and Dara, are also on the phone as well. As Janice mentioned, our property is at 327 South Smedley Street. Brendan and Dara are renovating the entire interior of the property. And as you'll see in the images that we're going to show, there's a bay window at the back of the property that sticks out at the second floor. And at the moment, this bay window is square on one side and then tapered at the other due to an old tree that used to be in the rear yard of this property that has since been taken down. And while we're doing the renovations, the interior space that's created by the chamfering on the end of this bay creates an awkward interior space in that second floor room. And we're requesting a modest addition in square footage to this bay window to square off the room on the inside and bring it to the point where it probably would have been built in the first place had that tree not been there at the time that it was constructed. Let me move over to the zoning drawing here. The property in question on the east side of Smedley Street, about halfway between Spruce Street and Pine Street. And you'll see here that there's an alleyway down the center, egress alley, and also that there's a larger building to the south here as well.
Pardon me, Peter,
I'm sorry?
are you trying to share your screen?
Oh, did it not work? I'm sorry.
It did not work.
Let me
You're
try that
describing
one
it
more
very
time.
well, but we just can't see it.
Sorry, I don't use Zoom often, so this is a new learning experience for me. Share. How about that? Is that better?
Much better.
Wonderful, thanks. Appreciate you pointing that out before I got too far along without anyone seeing. So here you go. That was the drawing I was just talking over. Spruce Street, Pine Street, and everyone's familiar with Smedley. And we are right in the middle here on the east side of the street. So this is the plan that we were looking at, and the kind of zoning profile that we prepared as part of the zoning submission. South Smedley Street's to the upper portion of this drawing. And then in the back, there's a bay window that is tapered, which does not include this gray area. The gray area in this drawing is the additional 10 square feet that we're asking to be able to add on to this bay window to square off the room on the inside of the home here. And as you'll see here at the rear yard, the bay window sticks out over the rear yard and is within the conforming rear setback. But the way the zoning code is written right now, we received a refusal because the actual open area is at the footprint of the building and not the area that was open at the bottom. This may have been the case back when this was actually constructed, because I didn't see anything in the zoning archives that indicated that there was a refusal associated with building this. But now that the tree that was in this location was taken down for some reason we're not aware of by a previous owner, we would really love to be able to take the bay window out to its full square form as part of this renovation. And as Janice mentioned, the existing open area was already non-conforming at 159 square feet, 19.9% versus a 25% minimum that's required currently. We're asking to reduce that slightly by 10 square feet to 18.6% open area and 149 square feet. And the one last thing I'll show as part of this is the rear portion, some photographs of the rear portion of the property. This is the existing condition on the bay window. The cladding will all be stripped off and reclad in a hardy siding material as part of the renovation. And this red area on the side indicates the mass that would be added to the bay window as part of this project. Is there anything that anyone can think of that I haven't touched on that I could address before taking questions?
We'll find out in the questions.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Peter. This is a relatively straightforward proposal, so I'm going to forego the roll call and just ask the committee if they have a question to please unmute themselves and go ahead.
In the picture, you show a through-wall air conditioner unit. Does that come out as part of the renovation?
That's right. Then the systems will be replaced as part of the renovation. Brendan and Dara are gutting the building down to the studs basically, and then building it back in a way that will be all new, but will be done in a way that respects history and with salvage materials that they're planning to source.
Peter, you could stop screen share if you
I
like.
assume the bars would come off the windows.
I'm sorry, did you ask me to stop screen sharing, Janice?
Yes, I think it would be, unless you want to, unless there's a question about this graphic.
Okay, sure. I'd be happy to pull it up if something else comes up that would benefit from seeing these images.
Just a quick follow-up. I assume that the bars would not be part of the renovation on the second floor that are currently across the existing windows.
If Brendan and I haven't discussed that, but I would presume that there would not be bars on the windows.
That is correct. The objective here is to make it a historic home. I've done several historic renovations in the neighborhood, including one on this block. And this is going to be our personal home. There won't be any bars. There will absolutely be central air and no external air conditioning. And certainly the exterior clad is going to be, beautiful and historically reasonable. I mean, it's not going to be a perfect historic restoration, but it's going to be beautiful and in matching with the neighborhood and the time period as well, within reason, because that's what we want. Is we want a historic house on Smedley Street.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, I do know there is a question from the public. Michelle Piercy, would you please unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question?
Thank you for the presentation, Peter. My name is Michael Percioli. I live nearby at 1606 Spruce.
Hmm?
Your 3D rendering indicates that the bay window will not touch the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Is that so?
That's right.
So you are not encroaching in at the ground level the existing open space.
No, we're not. And in fact, I didn't mention it, but this, I don't know if you recall, there's a column that comes down out of the end of that bay window. We're actually removing that as well. The reason for the refusal is because the way the zoning code is written, it's not really about touching the ground. The open area is based on the roof area footprint of the project. But no, we're not proposing to take up any more ground area.
So in that sense, you are maintaining the same open ground for rain and storm and everything like before. You are just adding more shadow, to say that in a simple way.
That's fair.
But the ground level, the yard, the usable yard remains untouched.
Yes, the usable space below the bay window will be the same area.
For that reason, I'm not opposing the variance.
Good.
As a neighbor.
Thank you.
If this was going down to the ground, it would be a different approach for us, because we do have a very limited open space in that neighborhood.
Agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else from the neighborhood?
Yes, I'm Joy McIntyre. I live next door. I'm sorry I look like Casper the Friendly Ghost. I don't know why. And we do want to welcome the Kellys to the neighborhood. They live, Brendan lived here before, and we're glad to have him back. But I do have some questions. One of the, I want to make sure that the expansion is only for the second floor. You're not building up or down. It sounds like that's what I just heard. And I also want to ask about a window on what would be the north wall that would be overlooking my garden. I don't see anything on the plans about a window.
No, the windows would remain on the east side, looking out into Brendan and Dara's backyard. We wouldn't propose a window looking into your backyard.
Yeah. The other thing is, I'm wondering about, the back of my property, the building behind me is built to the property line and probably over, it looks like it's built over the alley. So I'm boxed in there. Pulling this to the property line would box me in along the side. And I'm wondering, it appears to me that the bay is indented on the south side, and I'm wondering about a similar indentation on the north side so that I'm not quite so boxed in, squaring it off by pulling it in rather than pushing it all the way out.
Here, let me share the screen again.
Because it doesn't go to the property line on the other side. And you're not proposing building that.
Oh, here, can you see my screen again?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm not entirely clear why this one is in slightly further like that on that side. Yeah. But we sprung this wall out based on where this was hitting there. Mm-hmm. So it's not exactly to the property line. It's to the thickness of the brick masonry wall between this home and yours.
Because I am concerned about losing light to my garden, and I currently have light in my kitchen window, and I don't know how to judge what pushing this all the way out to the edge will do to my light, but I'm assuming it would block my light.
And Joy, I think it will have a very modest increase in the shadow. But that will mostly be realized during the summer when the sun's very high in the sky. Let me go to the context drawing here. During the winter, this building right here is a very tall apartment building that I believe is 2 stories taller than the adjacent row homes. And I believe that carries back quite a ways, I think almost to the property line in there. So I think during the winter, when the sun's low in the sky and coming through, I don't think you'll realize any change in the shadow in your rear yard, but there will be a modest increase. I would expect on the order of like a foot or 2 of additional shadow that gets cast.
Well, that actually would cut out my kitchen window for sure. So I'm wondering, I mean, there will be a hardship to me. I'm wondering what the hardship to you is in just pulling it back instead of squaring it off to the edge, just squaring it off to the interior edge. That way you have the squared off space on the second floor and I don't lose my light.
So you're suggesting that we might take the same distance on this side and create something similar here?
Pull it in. That way I'm not as affected. I don't lose the light because I don't know. I think for most of us in Center City, light is a very scarce commodity sometimes.
I mean, I'll respond.
Especially on the first floor.
I understand what you're saying there. You know, I haven't stood in this yard in every month of the year because we haven't owned it for that long. But the times I stand out there, the shadow from the tall apartment building, which goes back further than our property lines, is absolutely the thing that causes the effect on any sunlight back there. The tree that used to be there, from just looking at previous Google Maps, was just monstrous. And so that was blocking the sunlight dramatically. Here we're talking about a really modest impact on the way that we're bumping this out. We're doing it in order to give the house a more historic feel and appropriate look. And so I understand we all have concerns. I mean, if I had my way, I'd like to get rid of the tall apartment building that's 2 doors over, but we're all living in this ecosystem. And so relative to the tree, I think this is I love trees, but if you're talking about sunlight relative to the tree, this is a dramatic improvement, and it's a modest change. So.
Well, I was there with the tree, and it actually didn't block that much of the light because it was an ailanthus. It was very kind of lacy, so we did get light back there. I don't actually feel like the apartment building blocks my light. I think I'm a little bit farther down from you from the apartment building, but your addition would block some of my light. So what I'm suggesting is that you just pull it in a little bit so that I'm not affected. I do have some pictures of my garden where it is sunny. I don't know how to upload them at the moment since they're on my phone. But I could send them following this meeting, or I could send this to the Center City email now. Would that be helpful? Hello?
I'm not sure that that will result in it being shown. If you would, you can, I can put my email in the chat.
Just so that you can see there actually is sun there now. And so what I'm just suggesting is that rather than push it all the way to the far edge, that it's pulled in somewhat. It's certainly indented on the other side. You can see on the drawing. Chat.
I'm having trouble doing that.
But I really I wouldn't be really happy about losing my son. And I'm hoping that we can work together on that.
Sounds like a topic that I'm going to have to discuss with Brendan.
I have a question for the architect.
Mm-hmm.
So I see you indent on the sorry, Mike, on the north side, the thickness of the wall. What's your indentation on the south side? The existing
The south side is existing.
Yes.
And are you asking what this dimension from here to here is?
No, from left to right.
From here to the property line?
Yeah, property line to that face of that wall.
Just shy of a foot.
Okay, so and what's the distance? So what I think the woman's asking is for you to make it symmetrical. So if right now you have how much of an indentation from the property line to your wall?
Excuse me, I just really don't want to lose too much of my son because I'm not understanding what the hardship is actually right now.
Joy, did you ask? I thought I heard you ask if they could make it symmetrical. That
I'm asking, pardon me, what I'm asking is that instead of pushing it out to the very edge, they pull it in so that so that I'm not being affected.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, that maybe we can come to an agreement right now where they pull it in on your side, the same dimension that it's pulled in on the other side. I thought you asked for that at one point.
I don't know how to answer that because I'm not familiar with these kinds of drawings and I can't tell how far in that is. I can see that it's like 6 feet farther over towards me, I think, and 3 feet up, which I understand doesn't sound like a lot, but if it blocks the sun to my garden, it would be a lot to me. So what I'm suggesting is that instead of, if what this is designed to do is get a square edge, take the square edge, just pull it in.
And what, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but what Peter, sorry, looking at his name, did was he pulled it in, he's showing an additional indentation to make it symmetrical from one side to the other.
I can't tell what that is.
And we'd be okay with making it symmetrical on both sides. What Peter's drawn here in red, we're okay with that.
I don't want to be difficult, honestly. I just don't know how far that is and whether that will still affect my light.
Well,
it looks like it will.
If I could offer a suggestion that you all get together and figure out if there is any impact by doing a sun study. We often ask for them in a case like this where, but we didn't. It's not a requirement that you have one, but that would tell you whether or not and when that there is a problem.
Could I just ask? Thank you for that. Could I just ask one question? What is the hardship in not moving this?
It's Brenda, did you want to take that?
I'll take a shot at it. I mean, the hardship is that we're trying to build a historic renovation. And if you stand on the inside of the house or the outside of the house, you know, it looks like something that was built by the Jetsons or something. It's like this funky, you know, mid-century modern feel, which when it was built back in the 1950s might have been a great architectural solution to the fact that there was a tree in the place from what we can tell. But it's not in staying with the character of the house, and the houses obviously on this street are all very small. And so we're trying to find the balance of making it functional so that we can use the space on the inside. We were sensitive to the lighting issue and the window issue. So at the moment there's a window that looks into your yard, and we intentionally didn't put a window facing north so that it will give you extra privacy in that way. And our windows will only be facing to the east. And so the objective is to build a house where when you walk into it, it feels that it was appropriate for the neighborhood when the houses were constructed originally.
Excuse me, as a committee member, and at the risk of being chastised by the co-chairs of the committee, as I often am, this is an immediate issue between the right next door neighbor and the applicant. And if I would recommend that Joy and Peter and Brendan talk specifically between the two and work this out rather than going back and forth and taking everybody else's time and getting back to us as to whether or not you can have an accommodation. Sam and Janice, I recommend that we ask them to do that.
Thank you, Bob. That's a great suggestion.
That sounds great.
It's not only a suggestion,
Thank you.
it's a question to the two of you.
Thank you.
Are you willing to do that?
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Was there anyone else here on this application from the public?
If I can add one other thing here, Janice, because I did not pay attention to the daylight impact, only on the ground covering impact. But there is a light lost anytime when you build above ground. And it's a legitimate request that Joy has. And I would encourage to have Peter generating a daylight study. The the computer modeling that he's using for the project may have that capability built in to do a daylight studying in all the seasons and compare the one solution which is presented with the one that was suggested by the zoning of having it symmetrical wall from north to south, and comparing the two graphs, I would recommend.
Thank you, Michael. All right,
Sounds great.
we're ready for the next case. This one is 1642 Pine Street. And the variance is for occupied area. I believe Adam Labor will present this case.
Yes, thank you, Janice and Sam, members of the committee and neighbors. Adam Labor of Blank Rome, for those of you who just joined. 1642 Pine Street is owned by Debbie and Bob Fleischmann. They've been fixtures in the neighborhood for many years, and unfortunately, they are not able to be with us this evening. My understanding is that they've taken their first plane trip since the pandemic began to a happy family event somewhere else. So they apologize that they're not with us. Marty Rosenblum, who is another fixture in the neighborhood and is the architect on this project, is with us this evening. And by way of background, I would like to say, similar in some respects to the other project that I presented at the start of this evening's meeting, Debbie and Bob have spoken with, I believe, just about every near neighbor of theirs regarding this proposal. Before I screen share with you, I'd like to provide some context as to why we're here. On March the 7th of last year, March 7th, 2020, Debbie and Bob experienced a catastrophic loss. Work was going on at 1640 Pine Street, the property just to the east of theirs. Thank God no one was in their house when there was a collapse caused by the construction next door. Debbie and Bob's daughter, Sarah, who also lives in the neighborhood, was the first on the scene. And since then, Debbie and Bob have not been able to live in their home. They're living in the neighborhood in an apartment. They thought for half a moment, they've been in this property where they raised their 3 children since the 1990s, the late 1990s. And for half a moment when this happened, they thought, as they're empty nesters and moving into a different phase of life, should they move into a condominium in the neighborhood? They love their house. They love their neighbors. They want to continue to live there. And so they decided that they, thank God they're in good health, although Debbie has suffered some. She went through a bout of cancer some time ago, but they would like to age in place and live there for as long as they can. That takes us to this effort to rebuild their house and to seek your support for the one variance before you. Let me go to screen share and I'll walk you through this. Hopefully on the screen you can see a couple photographs, which I have at 150%. If you need me to blow it up a little bit larger, please let me know. The house with the orange sticker on the door is the Fleischmann Residence, and that orange sticker went up after the collapse, which is not so easily visible from the street since it occurred within a common courtyard, which is the subject really of why we need zoning relief. But the red arrows show you the Fleischmann Residence. The yellow arrows show you the 1640 Pine Street, where the construction was going on and this unfortunate incident occurred. Debbie and Bob's house runs from Pine Street south, and you'll see the photographs from the rear shortly. Here's another photograph off of Pine Street. And here you can see Waverly Street in the rear, which is a lovely residential street as well. Bob and Debbie's residence has a parking garage for their use off of Waverly and an existing rear deck. I'll move along. Here are, I think I better scroll out a little bit. Here are a series of photographs that follow the, what I'm calling a catastrophic loss, which really is the legal terminology, in the interior courtyard. So not seen off of Waverly and not seen off of Pine Street, but in a small open space in between the Fleischmann residence and the neighboring residence. There was a bit of a collapse, which actually presented an opportunity for what I'll show you in a moment that they would like to do. Before I get there, here is the notice of refusal. Their property is CMX1. The permitted occupied area is 75% or a requirement for 25% open area. And they would like to fill in that interior courtyard that no one really can see to have livable space at the first floor, which would cover 100%. I'd like to note that the existing property, which is currently uninhabitable, already exceeds the code requirement. And I highlighted that at the bottom of this page for you to see. Moving to Marty's plans, you'll see I highlighted things I wanted to bring to your attention. Off of Pine Street, there's no work on the Pine Street elevation. We're not seeking any changes to the height of the property. So if you walk by on Pine Street, if you're a neighbor, it would look the same. Similarly, off of Waverly in the back, it would look the same. There's the existing one-story garage and the deck above, which I showed you in the photographs. However, here in the interior courtyard, they would rebuild a two-story collapsed section of the house dating back to that collapse from March of 2020. They would add a little bit to that previously existing two-story addition. So they would extend that for some more space. And so that they could age in place to make the house fully accessible, they're proposing an elevator that would go up and extend it to the third floor. That is the extent of what is being proposed. If you look in towards the aerial photograph that Marty has on the right of this plan, you can see here where my cursor is 1640, the neighboring property. You can see the Fleischmann residence, which really takes up pretty much the full footprint, except for this sliver of a triangular area that is that interior courtyard. It is in this section again that they would be rebuilding the two-story collapsed section, slightly extending it, and putting in a elevator for their use as they age in good health. This is a floor plan, which is really internal. Here you see highlighted my highlights just to make this easy to see. The one-story addition at the ground level out of the sight of the public, the new elevator, which is to the south side, but it is before the garage. And the elevations, which remain the same. There's really nothing to see different with the many plans that we have here. And I should note that we have shared with the committee the overwhelming support of the neighbors and Debbie and Bob would like me to share with those who are present, and I recognize some names, their heartfelt thanks for the support that they've received through this difficult ordeal. Marty and I are here to answer questions or to engage in further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. All right. Again, I think this is a pretty straightforward presentation and case, so I will ask, we'll not be doing a roll call for the questions. Does anyone on the committee have a question?
Yes, I do. Adam, thanks for the presentation. Question with regards to any opportunity for a green roof or a catchment system to try to make up for some of that lost open space?
That has not been discussed for this project. I think that there are some constraints. Marty, if you'd like to speak to that, you're welcome to.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Marty.
Okay. First of all, the side yard, which we are going to be filling in, was 100% covered in concrete. We are not removing any space that I'll say might help the environment. The reason we actually decided, one of the reasons we decided to go up, Adam, if you can scroll back to the pictures, please.
Sure.
The screen share, I would like to go, first of all, to the side view, the photographs. Let's go to the photographs a moment.
Does that help?
Yeah, but yes. Well, first of all, let's look the lower right photograph. The lower right photograph, excuse me, no, you're better off. I didn't realize, well, you're fine where you are, Adam. Go to the bottom. Go to the bottom where you were a moment ago. Scroll. Yep. Okay. So you see on the lowest row of photos on the left what the condition was at the time of the collapse, which is a low-rise building next to the Fleischmann's deck. That is shown with the single car, the SUV, parked at the bottom. If you look at the center picture there, you see what the Fleischmanns are faced with now, which is what was a one-story above their deck is now basically a four-story house. If you move up one row, Adam, to photo 9Z6, you will see what the Fleischmanns are looking at now, which is the ground floor, which is cut off. The second floor where you see a door is where that structure ended. The next door neighbor has added a third floor and a full shed dormer at the rear, fourth floor. In addition to that, the owner has gotten permission next door to put a walkout deck, which I do show a picture of their drawing, full width of the property, coming out 6 feet. Now, the two pictures to the left of the four-story rear view show most of what we are looking at, which is walls. So basically, the Fleischmanns are in a hole right now. They have a three-story concrete wall to the east, a small open space, and a view of the underside of a deck, and some serious roof drainage problems. I can say that down the line, if structurally it would support it, that one could consider doing something over the garage where their deck is. But it is literally, I mean, it doesn't look it from these pictures, but it's literally a dark hole. I mean, they have been enclosed. In fact, going lower level again, the middle picture, 12, shows, if you look at the eave line, the back eave line, before the shed dormer, you see a black line coming out to the Fleischmann's addition, the tin addition. that is the cornice line of the building opposite, which is a 3-story concrete wall. So we really are in a hole there. As I said, I would love to explore something environmentally more sensitive with the roof of the garage, but I would have to explore that and see if we could take the additional weight. One of the things that we found that was very interesting when this house was built, it was actually an agglomeration of many buildings, literally, that were filled in between. And so there are a number of structural anomalies that we would have to look at. Have I addressed that, Ben, adequately, or I don't mean to sidestep you. I just am trying to show you what the conditions are there. They're not very happy.
That was a complete answer, Marty. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? All right, thank you. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to say anything? All right, Adam, thank you for your presentation. Marty, thank you for yours. Very much appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
all.
your good work.
Be safe.
Thank you. Bye now.
All right, our last case. 1718 Delancey Place, it's zoned RM1, and it's under the Center City overlay. The refusal is for minimum open area required 25% and proposed 5.5%. I noticed that Richard Stokes is here. Is there anyone else here that is doing the presentation?
Hi, Janice. Herc Brigos. I'm the zoning counsel.
Yes, hi, great.
Scott and Talia. And Scott and Talia Baldessari here are the owners. I think Mr. Stokes and Jeff DeLock, the Achillea are here.
You might want to speak up a little bit. You are there. You might want to get closer to the mic.
Great. Sorry about that. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Herc Brigos from the Claire Harrison firm, representing Scott and Talia Baldessar, owners of 1718 Delancey Street. We're here today with an addition to their property in the rear, site zoned RM1, and currently, like most of the properties on this block, it's not conforming to open area, and the refusal is for the open area. I guess I'm going to share my screen, but I'll let Scott sort of give everybody a little bit of the procedure of how he went about meeting with everyone and how this process has started, and then I'll walk everybody through the plans if that works.
Sounds good. Thanks, Herc. So for those who don't know me, I'm Scott Baldessar with my wife Talia. We have a little 18-month-old boy, Jack, who's asleep right now. We've lived in the neighborhood for 6 years now. We love the neighborhood. We love our home, and we want to continue to raise our family here. So about a little bit over a year ago, we decided we wanted to look into an addition to our current 2-bedroom home, so we could create something that we could live in for the foreseeable future. So basically what we designed, we have a parking area on Panama Street. So we designed a garage with 2 levels above that. And then we have a existing 1-story room on Panama Street as well. So we designed 1 level on that and a balcony. When we started the process, it was very important to us to reach out to all of our neighbors. So about a year ago, we knocked on all of our immediate neighbors' doors. We wanted to get everyone's feedback, and all that feedback really evolved and changed the design to what we have today. So we also went through a historic process and made some changes through the historic process. They ultimately approved our addition and our design just a few weeks ago. Some of the important decisions and changes that we had to make as a direct result of our neighbors in the historic process was we removed an upper floor roof deck, which effectively lowered the addition by 4 feet. And then we also reduced the overall building height by 2 feet. We're at 36 feet, which is 2 feet below what is permitted by zoning code. And then we also reduced the entire width of our addition by 1.5 feet as a direct result of some concerns from our direct neighbor. We also removed 1 bay window, and we changed the facade material from stucco to a nice white brick to be more in keeping with the historic neighborhood. We also conducted sun studies for our neighbors, both on Panama and directly adjacent to us on Delancey. And it was important to us to keep the facades light so we could continue to reflect light and promote light on Panama Street in consideration for our neighbors there. Overall, it's been a very positive process for us over the last year, communicating with our neighbors. And, we feel we took a very respectful approach to this, having reached out to them a year ago and opened the door to our design, and that really had a significant impact and a lot of changes on our design. We try to do as much as possible to be accommodating. Of course, you can't make 100% of the changes that your neighbors would like to see, but we feel like we've been as responsive as possible, and we feel like we got really close with these revised plans. So I'll pass it back to you, Herc, to give some more details on the project, and thanks for everyone's time tonight.
Everyone could see this portion. It's really an interesting property. It's an L-shaped portion. It's an historic 2-story on the front. And in the property, there's a courtyard in the middle, and then it juts out as an L shape here with an existing parking space. And I'm going to try to get a picture of that condition in the rear here. You can see this is Panama Street, and this is the rear of the property on Panama Street with the existing door. Here it is in plan of the existing condition. Everyone can see that. I'm sorry, it's a 3-story building on the front with courtyard in the middle, connection back to the 1-story masonry in the rear, and then the existing carport. The proposal is to add a 3-story addition where the carport exists. The neighbor to our north here at 1720, their property goes right to the property line. This is a blank wall with no windows, about 40-some feet high. So we tried to we've matched that here with a 3-story addition. And then as you come on the existing building, we added 1 story with a deck. I think that's shown here. And of course, as a result, our open area at the ground floor is only about 5.5%. As you know, in RM1, it's a 25% requirement. However, I would submit that probably no one in this immediate vicinity of the neighborhood meets the 25%. But what I think is important is the way the building is designed and how when you go above from the 2nd floor up, I think we're over 20% of open area. So I think that's in terms of light and air and how what's happening at the ground floor really doesn't impact because of the party walls. But as you go up, I think we're more in line with the code. So just some layouts, and here's the renderings of the front of the building. And then, sorry, just scrolling down.
I think it's important to mention our orientation on Panama Street adjacent to the theater as well as the dead end wall.
Right. So I think that's, I was going to show you a letter, but the way this, maybe I could do it Sorry that I'm still not an expert on Zoom here. I hope to see everybody in person soon. I think here you can see the rendering and the photo up in this corner. I'll try to zoom in on that. So if you can see the condition, there's a wall here, and this is the theater to our east, and it's sort of the dead end on Panama Street is where our parking spaces and where the addition is proposed. So I think with that, there's really not most the condition on Panama Street is most of the buildings are built to the street and are 3-story. So we think it's consistent with the condition there. And just wanted to show a few more photos. Here's the refusal. There's our letter from the Historic Commission. I think here's a shot of the existing condition on Panama Street. And I think that picture sort of shows what the condition will be with the theater. Up to the north, you could see our neighbor's property sort of towering up at 40+ feet. I have a photo of that. And I think, Scott, as part of that, you did move the property over a little bit to try to respond.
Yeah, we had significant discussions through the process.
Scott sent to the neighbor, sorry, and here's the original project and how it changed. And then here's some, I think I provided this to you, Janice, my associate, that this is some support or non-opposition. Scott and his wife went around to the neighborhood. And here's sort of the changes that we saw.
Eric, you're making me nauseous the way you're moving through this.
So I think, I think the last thing I want to show, I'll try to go slow here and not get anybody seasick, is sort of the picture of the courtyard. As you can see, we do lose some of the open area here at the shrine with these awnings that sort of come down. So the open area, it's outdoor space, but I'm not sure that it's actually a little bit larger than the 5%. I guess you don't get credit for these awnings that come over. And I think that has some impact on that. But really, I think what's important to understand is as you go from the second floor up, that's where the site really opens up. And that's where you would typically have impact as you go up on adjacent light and air. But because of the condition here of having a party wall and the theater to our right, and on the L shape, a party wall that comes up pretty significantly, we think this makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. All right, well, we have questions from the committee. Let's go with Michelle. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, no questions, no questions.
Robin.
No questions.
Veronica.
No questions, thank you.
Sam. Ben Zuckerman. Where is he? Ben Weinraub.
Same as the last proposal, any research or exploration of a green roof or catchment system?
Jeff, you can speak to that, but I believe we do have a green roof there on above the second story there.
Yes, this is Jeff Delaquila with Stokes Architecture. Yeah, throughout the process, we have been reviewing some green roof opportunity, or at least some rain garden designs within the roof deck, roof balcony concept. So yes, those are considerations, and we are planning on moving forward with some of those water retention concepts.
Thank you. Bob Lane.
No questions, thanks.
Evan Litvin. Evan, you there?
No questions.
Okay, Jacob.
No questions.
Is there anybody? Oh, Sam, there you are.
All right, no questions.
Thank you. Is there anybody here from the public that would like to ask any?
I have my hand up.
Okay, David.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for staying to the end. My name is David Chu, and I'm property owner at 1720 Delancey. My wife, Amy Jersel, is also on the line, but she's with my kids. I didn't know how late this would go. What I'd like to do is to, at the outset, just mention that we have no ill will to Scott and Talia, but we would really like to express our opposition and hope that you really hear us together with neighbors at 1722 Delancey, as well as several neighbors on Panama Street. And so with that, let me just start sharing my screen. I do have a presentation. I think the visuals will help.
David?
Yes.
Approximately how many minutes are you planning?
I'm gonna go quickly.
Because we don't usually do that. You don't usually get to present. So please do keep.
Yeah, but yes, I will. I promise I will. So you've seen these diagrams. This is the existing condition. This is what they propose to fill in above their open air garage. The elevation is at approximately 20.5 feet from the ground. As we saw before, in red is their property line. The green is the only access to air and light that our property receives. This is a conceptual drawing that we've taken from them. In their revised plan, they've actually raised the elevation compared to the original. It's now time for us to kind of explain how this proposed addition is going to impact us. And as you saw, that reverse L shape at 1718, in blue is our property, in green is the only access is our courtyard or side yard. That's the only access to air and light in our property. And it's been shaped this way since 1887. So at least 134 years at that time. 1718 was a livery stable. Vesey Street was there instead of Panama Street. But the thing to notice is that there was still open air here. There was a cutout here. There was still access to open air that will come in importantly later on. And as far as the front of the facade, actually the neighborhood still looks the same as it did in 1963. And our structure shown here is the same as it was in 1887. You can see it's marked at 3.5 feet with a mansarded roof. That's exactly the same footprint as it's always been. This is shown in 1963. Now, what's important is aside from our front windows, which you just saw, all of our access to light and air depends on the southern facing side yard and that 3-foot setback from our property from 1722, right? And this is where we spend 95% of our waking time. Our house was renovated in 1999. It was a core design element was access to this light. And Scott and Talia know about this because we had them in our house. We mocked up what they were going to do by showing some fabric all the way down. And so just to give you a visual from our perspective of what this addition will do, it's going to look like that. We certainly acknowledge that their original plan was to fill in the whole rectangle, but I like to think about it as a little bit of false anchoring since that fills in so much of the land and their concession seems quite modest. We don't believe that the revision goes far enough. They did a sun study, and the upshot of that sun study is that there's going to be significant impact on our air and light. This is 12:30 p.m. on the summer solstice, the winter solstice, the day that you care most about light and air. This is the results of their own study, and this is a lower bound because their study does not consider indirect light. And the upshot here is that our side yard and consequently our living space is going to be in constant shade in that period, whereas we would have 2 hours of direct sunlight according to their own model.
David,
As you know-
Dave, do you mind if I just ask a question? Just because I'm going to forget to ask.
Actually, what would be nice is if we just kind of get to the end here, and then I'd be happy
Okay,
to.
I'll write down a couple of notes.
Thank you. So as you know, the stated purpose of zoning and planning is to protect the access to each property to adequate light and air. And since 1718 became a house, as you can see here, that preservation of that side yard, that open air has always been there since even before formal zoning laws. Now, what's very interesting about the 5.5% open air is that it only, instead of affording each property air and light, they're only permitting themselves light and air. And so as a visual, this is what it looks like in terms of that opening. And what's very interesting is that it's not accidental.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this line, you're not talking about the impact on your property. You're finding a problem with their design that really isn't relevant. Can you move along?
Yes. So this is a visual in terms of where they're building. And, as these are all the requirements, we all know about them. These are the permitted restrictions. They don't conform. These are the standards of the hardship. And it's not on, it's about preservation of, not injuring adjacent conforming proproperties. And so I think that's a very,
I think it's a great
very
point.
direct standard.
I think it's a great point, and I think
Yes.
we should just recognize that your property is completely non-conforming. You have no open
Well,
air.
what's very, Mr. Grigos, what's very interesting is that you mentioned, you kind of mentioned the heights, as I said, this is since 1868.
Please direct all comments to the chair. I'm sorry. We're not having a.
Sorry, Janice. I apologize. We'll see.
Right. So, yeah, let me just quickly finish the presentation, and I'd be happy to kind of engage in any dialogue. Of course, the committee chair, is in control here. There is, of course, exceptions on, of course, it's not a legal proceeding yet, but there are, permitted deviations on the dimensional side. But the key case here is really about remediation. This is a presently undeveloped property, and it's not in a blighted area. So the factual basis of this particular case doesn't seem to apply. One last substantive point before I wrap up is that the hardship has to be with the property itself and not anything else. This particular lot at 1953 square feet is in the upper 18% of all lots located in zip code 19103. That's according to the Philadelphia OPA 2018 data set. And of course, the fact that they're asking for a 19.5% exemption from this on a very large lot is going to be much more material in square footage.
David, can we just keep it how it impacts you? You have a lot of research, but we're interested in how you're impacted.
Yes, I mean, let me just then conclude, since I sent these slides to the committee and that you've seen them before, I think the point here is Scott and Talia, they have the right to by right privilege to build on their property so long as it conforms. And I think that the point is that they're preserving their light at the expense of ours. So it's very direct. We're using their own sun study. We have been, trying to work with them on this. And so we respectfully request, the backing of the CCRA and helping us oppose this variance. And the last point that actually Amy just asked me to remind the committee, my wife, is that they're putting 3 stories in front of us and only 2 stories in front of them. And so it feels like, there's this issue of really maximizing the footprint on this lot doesn't feel de minimis at all. So let me stop there. Thank you very much, committee, for your attention.
One question before you go. You said you are representing yourself in 1722 Delancey?
No, that's incorrect. 1722 Delancey will now, Rita and David will now be speaking.
So wait, no, I'm the chair. I'm speaking.
I'm sorry.
I'm
thank you.
asking you. Are
Yes,
you?
I only represent myself
Thank you.
and Amy.
Can I respond, Janice?
Yes.
Thank you. So there's a 34-inch opening between our properties. And through this process, again, we have been incredibly kind. A year ago, reached out to David and Amy, and we spent many, many hours and significant money on architecturals going through this with them. So there's a 34-inch opening between our properties. And we pulled our property back 18 inches, our entire addition back 18 inches. So there's 16 inches of overlap. David, the green diagram you have of that.
Yeah, if I may,
that's not an accurate representation. That's not showing at what we did pull back. Not a big deal. But my question, David, is what is the length of your opening to the southwest? We're talking about 34 inches, but how the length of opening to your courtyard to the southwest? So that's clearly not over 50% of the revised. Small point, but I just think it's a
no. Actually, I would love. I'm sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Janice, for unmuting me. You're talking about 18 inches above this area here. That's very consequential.
Correct, but that doesn't show over 50%. That's
David, Scott, let me interrupt you as a committee member. And again, I defer to the co-chairs, but you're talking about 18 inches between your two properties, which is very particular to you and not to the
I think that's a fair.
I would recommend that you guys speak further about this 18 inches and maybe get back to us. Not something that is.
Sam. We've tried to convey this, but we will have further discussion. We have tried.
And David, can you just remind me what the opening is to your west from your courtyard? How many feet that is?
This entire length is 3 feet.
No, to your west, where you get light and air from to your west. It's about 25 or 30 feet is what I would estimate. So, I think we've tried to be as accommodating as possible.
Scott, again, if you would please, like David, Scott, stop debating this between the two of you. Other people may have things to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public here?
Yes, I'm at 1722. I'm Rita Copeland. This is my husband, David Wallace. I screen share, but not to make a full presentation. All I want to do is show you pictures.
Is there anything you're repeating that has been said?
Well, I'm letting you know how this will affect our light in our house.
Right.
I'm not going to read a great deal. Let me just say that we have east-facing skylights and south-facing skylights. The east-facing skylights in our downstairs room, which is otherwise windowless, look directly onto that corridor that is shared between our house and David Shue's house. And what I would like to do, would you very much mind, may I share screen?
Go ahead.
Okay. So these are the skylights that look west, and you can see those vertical skylights. So they make a slant. Obviously, the slanting part gets light from the sky, but the vertical ones get light from that corridor that's in question. So that's one thing. The same with our southern-facing skylights, which would be impacted. I should just say that the skylights here represent 25% of the light that comes into our downstairs room. I want you to see also what that room looks like. So this is the light that we get from those windows, from those east-facing windows. So half of those east-facing windows would be impacted. And then there is also this window, which I happen to be sitting in front of right now, which faces east onto that light corridor, and that would be impacted. So those are my main points. Thank you.
When you say impacted, please be more specific.
So in the same way in which David Shoe's 1720s light would be obstructed as it goes through the corridor, our light would be obstructed because we use that same corridor for the light in our bottom room and the light in our east-facing window.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the neighborhood that would like to speak?
Hi, thank you all so much for taking the time tonight, and I will promise to be quick and short about this. I live at 1706 Panama Street and am speaking just to how this will affect me. I agree with all of the points that David and Rita have previously said, and in support, I am opposed to this project. Scott and Talia reached out over a year ago, presented their proposed initial rendering. All of the neighbors on Panama Street opposed it. We sat with them, we made feedback and comments, none of that was addressed. It went to the Historical Society, they opposed it, then the feedback came back, they did the renderings. They then talked to us after the Historical Society. We further spoke with them about the concerns that we had, and nothing has been changed till we are here at this point with you. As far as light and air, on a very small street, it is not a back alley. Our homes face the front of the street. It's not just some back alley behind a restaurant that everything should be having to look at walls. So because our alley is so tiny, when you put up a massive structure that will be twice, if not 3 times the size of our own homes, it is a huge takeaway from our light and our air. And it sets a precedent not only for our street, but other streets around the neighborhood, that this is acceptable to take away light and air because other homes are smaller. For me, even today, I had light in my first floor window till 7:15 p.m. At the height of the summer solstice, I have it until 8:30 p.m. I have done my own sun studies, aside from the sun studies that we were given, and have found discrepancies between Scott and Talia's and the sun studies that I performed as far as how the light will be affected. So I would say for myself, I know there are 2 homes on Panama Street that have sold recently. Both of those neighbors were also opposed to this. So there may have been a signature to on Panama Street that is not in a position where their light will be affected, their air may be affected, but not their light. We are the homes that will be, and I'm opposed because it just has fallen on deaf ears, any of our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
I would like to speak, Ms. Woodcock, Eileen O'Brien.
Thank you, Eileen.
I live at 338 South 17th. My rear exit is to Panama Street, and I support my neighbors on Delancey and on Panama who oppose this project. I might not have the impact of the light that the others have raised, but I'm most concerned about the extent of the lot coverage that this applicant is seeking to go as far as 94.5% without really a hardship basis. There is literally no reason why this home cannot be used for the purpose for which it is currently zoned in the state in which it currently exists. And I respectfully request that CCRA oppose this project because it does not meet any standard that any reasonable person would apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Is there anyone else? Kelly?
Sorry to interject one last thing. I knew the previous, well, I still know, I know quite personally the previous owners of Scott and Talia's house. And they had 3 children that lived there very happily. There was not a hardship. So I will say from my understanding, knowing them from a personal standpoint, they never had a hardship of having 3 children in that home. Thank you.
Hi, Janice. I'm Talia. We've not met. And I don't totally know protocol,
but I would like to address some of Kelly's comments. Is that appropriate?
I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you so much.
Especially if there's any, I think also, Herc, if you've heard anything that we're trying to understand the impact on others.
Right.
And anything that you can tell us will be.
Yeah, I think if Talia wants to speak, and then I can just sort of wrap up how I see this and how from a zoning perspective and sort of.
Sure. You know what? I recall, Kelly, you sharing with us that you'd be upset with any wall there, right? I totally hear your desire for the sky and how you've become accustomed to that air on Panama. I do feel that we've been responsive with the feedback that you and our neighbors shared with us. And to Scott's point, we've been working so hard to take your concerns seriously and respond to those concerns. So I do feel like it's necessary to say that I unfortunately don't align with some of those comments. I feel like we've been extremely available for conversations and productive changes. And, at the end of the day, if your concern is any wall there is gonna make me unhappy, like there is no win for us. There is no change that we can make that's going to get us to a place where we're both satisfied.
To say we did not make changes from a year ago, we've made dozens of changes as a direct result of these conversations. So I think that's unfair because it's just factually not true. And also the Sun study that we provided is from is from SketchUp. It's from like a verified source that Stokes, a real architects, use. So it's to say it's wrong is just I think that's not right also. So we've made a lot of changes as a result of these conversations.
Janice, if I could just say a few things to report on the actual specifics, then we can sort of wrap up if that works. I will say that I'm not sure who Kelly was speaking for, but we do have a petition of 13 neighbors that were in support. So, I think her comment should be for herself. She's on the south side of the street, so I'm not sure how she's totally impacted. But when we talk about where this addition can go and how this impacts other neighbors, there's no rear yard requirement here because we're fronting two streets. So really it's a question of open area and where can the open area be? And that open area could be, there's no code requirement that it's not up against the wall. It's really how you orient the building. So I think, part of why is the addition, the 3-story addition over the parking space and not over the existing building? My guess is putting an addition on an existing building foundations is probably not physically possible. So that's probably why they chose to do it, not necessarily to further impact any other neighbor. I think they've tried to push and pull, but what we're talking about is direct neighbors that have non-conforming properties that they themselves are 10% or less of open area. They have properties that run to the property line, party walls, blank walls up against our property, and 36 inches, 18 inches of light at a certain time of day when the rest of their property opens up to the west for afternoon sun. So theoretically, if we were to expand, if we were to take those awnings off that I showed and expand our courtyard, we could get to, you could configure a building. I don't know that you can configure it at 25%, but you can configure a building with the open area where you can get it. It's not necessarily have to be in that location. So I think what Scott and his architects have tried to do is respond to the neighbors to try to push and pull and make the project functional. And I think what's really important is from the second floor up where it really impacts the neighbors, that's where we do have a ton of open area. So we're happy to continue discussions with the neighbors and see if there's anything we do, but we, from a standpoint to the committee, we believe that, it is true the question of how does this impact conforming properties? I would say none of the properties here conform. I would say most of the properties in Center City don't conform. And that's why we tried to really move it around and make something that was responsive to everybody. So I'll leave it to that and, stand for any questions, further questions from the committee, and thank everybody for their time.
Question, I just wanted to know if you would want the committee to take action on this tonight, or would you want to delay?
Scott, I mean, I think we're.
We've spent a year making changes. I think.
I think we're comfortable with taking action.
Yeah. Okay. Done.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, all.
May I just respond, and this will not be a back and forth dialogue. I would just like to say that I am not opposed to a wall going up. I'm opposed to the placement of how the perceived hardship will create a hardship for multiple neighbors. And on top of building out to the property line, there is an extension past the property line.
Kelly, this is not a forum for you to make your legal arguments. I think you should address that with the applicant or at the zoning board on your own.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And then this is Wade Albert, just to clarify, I know that we've said this before. There have been a number of people who wanted to speak this evening. And just a reminder that the ultimate decision maker in this case is going to be the ZBA. So if you want to have your say, we would strongly advise you to attend that hearing before the Zoning Board of Adjustment and to speak there. So thank you.
Thanks, Wade.
Making that clarification, Wade. All right, this concludes the public part of our meeting. I want to thank all the members who came out and are still here. But now it's time for you to go home while we do our work.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Janice, you want to kill that recording?
Thank you.